Recently I read the book The Vanished Diamond, or The Southern Star, depending on the version. The book had Jules Verne's name on its cover, but when I read it, I noticed some very strange things that didn't seem like a Jules Verne book. When I say it didn't seem like a Jules Verne book, I'm not talking about the story itself, but the way it was written. When you've read many books by the same author, which is my case with Verne, you can notice some mannerisms in the way he writes. Let's talk about the plot. The tale unfolds around the 1880s in South Africa, more specifically in a region known for diamond extraction called Van de Kopje in Griqualand. The protagonist is a young Frenchman named Victor Cyprien, who dreams of becoming rich so he can marry the daughter of a famous landowner in the region. The fastest way for Victor to get rich would be to find a diamond, but unable to extract it from the mines, he comes up with the idea of producing one artificially. Victor then conducts an experiment with the help of a native friend of his, named Mataki. The experiment is a success, and Victor produces the world's biggest diamond. However, days later, when the diamond is exposed to the public, it simply disappears, starting a safari-style chase in the desert after the suspects for the theft. The book is really fun and kept me entertained for almost 2 weeks, but there's definitely something odd about it that I couldn't explain while I was reading. After finishing the book, I started to research it just to find out that I was right. In fact, the real author of The Vanished Diamond was Jean-François Paschal-Grousset, also known as André Laurie, Philippe Dakhil, Tibours Moret, and Léopold Viret. Okay, fine, I discovered that I was right, but then I had more doubts. Who was this guy, and why wasn't the book credited to him? In fact, Paschal-Grousset was a journalist extremely linked to politics. He wrote several pro-revolutionary pamphlets and bothered politicians of his time, even getting arrested. A year after his arrest, Paschal was arrested again and later deported for his involvement in the Paris Commune, a leftist revolutionary movement that dominated Paris for more than 2 months between March and May 1871. Paschal managed to escape his exile and spend some years of his life as a French teacher in America, Australia, and England. Back in France, Paschal-Grousset immersed himself in politics as a socialist deputy of the 12th arrondissement of Paris from 1893 until his death. We can conclude that Paschal was a controversial man, to say the least. He had already tried to make a living from literature through 4 pseudonyms I mentioned previously, but without success. Although without establishing himself as a writer, Paschal called the attention of Pierre Jules Hetzel, editor, publisher, and friend of Jules Verne. In fact, Paschal and Verne had already worked together when producing The Beguine's Fortune in 1879. In 1884, Paschal wrote The Vanished Diamond, and Jules Verne was the editor. However, Pierre Jules Hetzel decided not to credit the book to Paschal, publishing it under Verne's name. The manuscript of Paschal's book has already been recovered and is currently in the Jules Verne Museum. On the other hand, Verne's manuscript containing his editions is currently lost. The reasons why The Vanished Diamond was not credited to Paschal-Grousset are unclear. It could be considered that his controversial political past could affect the sales performance, but the book was published more than 12 years after the author's deportation. His popularity didn't seem to be a problem either. After all, a few years later, Paschal was elected deputy. Honestly, there isn't much information online about Paschal-Grousset. Much of what I said about his life I found in the British Museum's online record, the link to which is in the description of this video. This makes it quite difficult to formulate a theory. I believe that, for now, the reason why the book's authorship was changed will remain a mystery.